and hopefully show y'all some new tools, maybe the utilization of a couple data sets you weren't familiar with, and just provide you an overall look at how RPR can be used within your commercial day-to-day. Oh, yep.
We just want to introduce ourselves. So my name is Amy Gonzalez. I'm here with Emma. We are the team of the Global Commercial Services. We just wanted to thank you again for presenting this RPR commercial webinar. If any of the presenters want to ask a question, you can just scroll your mouse over at the bottom and you can type in a question. So thank you, Nathan. Again, I will let you do your thing.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you.
I was excited. What can I say? I've had too much coffee.
Thank you, Nathan.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, now that we got the intros out of the way, let's go ahead and kind of jump into the slides. And then what we'll do is actually jump into the system and kind of show you all around a little bit. So, of course, I always like to start off reaffirming that, you know, RPR, we're actually a subsidiary of the National Association of Realtors. You know, all that really means is that, you know, we are a true benefit of your realtor membership. What we were created to do was to provide y'all with as much data about the communities and properties that you work with in order to help you close some more deals. So that's our main goal in all of this. And we try to do it at a cost-effective way. So the numbers came out earlier this year, but it's about $14 or so out of your NAR dues is what goes towards RPR. So, you know, I know it's pumpkin spice latte season, so you have to give up a couple of those, but it's still a pretty good deal in my mind. All right, so the key about RPR is that we are a property-centric database, and then what we do is we combine, you know, community data sets around those buildings, so you can not only understand, you know, is the building itself a good fit, but, you know, is the community going to support whatever businesses that your clients are trying to implement in those communities. So really quickly, just want to tell you how we bring all of this information together. So being a property-centric database, we have a reliable partner called Black Knight. They provide us with every public record that we're able to get our hands on across the entire country. So y'all have access nationwide to all the public records that we have available. That's both residential and commercial. So on commercial side, there's probably about 40 to 50 million different records that you can access. And then what we do is we pair information to those records. So things like listing details coming in through your MLSs, or, you know, some of y'all work in areas that have commercial information exchanges. Those will tie to those public records and combine together, and you'll kind of see how that works. Then, of course, we bring in third-party data sets like tenant information, so you can see who's you know, inside of those buildings. And lastly, of course, you can always add your own knowledge about these properties as well, and you'll see plenty of examples of that here in a minute. From the community standpoint, you know, really the backbone of all of that data is going to be Esri. A lot of y'all are probably familiar with Esri. If you're a CCIM member and you've used Site to Do Business, Esri is the ones who built that platform. So the same kind of data sets that are in Site to Do Business are going to be within RPR. It's just we use them a little bit differently. Esri is also used by Fortune 500 companies for site selection. You know, local government agencies use them to help build out GIS tools. So they are kind of the standard across, you know, in their realm. Then we also have a company called Calibrate, which brings us all of our traffic counts nationwide. SMR brings us those tenant records I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, 3DL, they bring us employment information on a monthly basis to kind of supplement some of the Esri data sets. So that's how we paint that picture for y'all as to, you know, how a client might be able to improve, you know, the shape, the feel, the look of their business to be more complementary to the communities that surround them. So this is kind of new. So last year, we really started working with some national listing partnerships. So the goal of which was twofold. NAR was trying to identify a public listing platform to get discounts for realtors, and they've done a good job with that. But the offset benefit of that was we were able to bring in listings from those sites as well. So we do have a couple other partners in congruence with that. But Total Commercial was really the first that we did this with. And so they kind of started in Florida, and what they have done is kind of grown outside of Florida right now. They have about 8,000 to 9,000 listings depending on the day. But every one of their listings comes into RPR Commercial and is viewable for any realtors across the country. So they were kind of the first group to do this with us. And then with the NAR push last year, we were able to partner up with a company called Brevitas.com. And now they bring in probably about 50,000 listings on a nationwide basis. And what's cool about all of these partners, it's not just realtors using their site. So it is a nice way to supplement those local feeds with some non-realtor listings as well. So that's kind of a cool feature. And then of course, Crexi, they're bringing in just about 250, I'd say, 1,000 listings on a nationwide basis as well. So we're really starting to kind of ramp that up. So within RPR, if you wanted to do a property search, you can do a search for, a search that includes the MLS or CIE that you're a subscriber of, and then any of these nationwide listings that come in that search area will pop up as well. So you don't have to add these to your account or anything like that. Anybody that shares nationwide with us is just automatically going to be viewable for you. A couple of tools I want to highlight, and we'll probably go through most of these in a minute, but we do have a site selection tool. So this is our attribute-based one, and you can kind of see how this works on the little computer screen there. But this is kind of a setup looking for maybe a senior care facility. So you have seniors, net worth, own their home, and then healthcare spending. And the whole goal of this is instead of doing a search for all of Portland, Oregon, I can really focus in on, what parts of Portland are going to have the people I want to be around, or the economic and demographic conditions I want to be around, and search directly in those locations. So not only does it save me time going through a lot of properties, but it also ensures that, at least for those core attributes that I want to be around, I can go ahead and make sure that I'm there before I find a property and then do the trade area research afterwards. We also have a retail gap analysis tool. So you can do this two ways. This one is showing you what's the best business for a location. So you can see how this kind of works. It shows you they have a ratio set up on the number of people it takes to support, say, a grocery store. And then it'll look at the number of grocery stores, the population of the area that you've got set up. And it'll just kind of show you if it's over or under saturated based on those ratios. You can also do the inverse of this. So if you're trying to place a restaurateur into a new city, you can really quickly understand the competition in specific parts of that city by running the retail gap analysis. Investment analysis tool. This will allow you to do those 2 to 10 year holds, plugging in basically all the assumptions you would assume you could. So things like disposition price, sales cap rate, any tenant improvements, on each month that you're trying to hold this for, renovations, capital reserves. For multifamilies, you can do the rent roll analysis or a unit mix and schedule out renovations. So it's a pretty in-depth tool. And again, we'll take a quick look at that. For any of y'all that are doing land development projects, I'm sure there's a couple of you on the call there in Texas. So I wanted to make sure that I at least mention this. We do have what's called a land development back of the envelope calculator. So what this will do, it'll allow you to look at the density allowance based on either the FAR base or the unit base, however your municipalities work out there. And then you as the developer can plug in, your market rates. So, how long does it take to go through some of the government, permitting processes, how long is it going to take to build, this property up, once it's built, how long is it going to take to kind of fill the spaces. It allows you to plug in all of those kind of key factors, and then it'll just kind of give you an overall idea as to whether or not this is something to really pursue, just kind of on a general basis before you spend a lot of hard, money and time in a development project. So getting started, I imagine a lot of y'all probably already have your account set up, but just in case there's some of you that are maybe new to RPR, it's really easy. You just go to narrpr.com, click on the sign up button, and it'll ask you for your NERD's last name, your email address, and then of course your NERD's number. If you don't have that, we'll have a lookup function for you so we can help you, get that set up. Or you could always call your local association, or you can go to NAR's website and look it up that way as well. You also have here creating your password. And then this last step just wants to make sure that you select any of the MLSs or CIEs that you're a member of. So if you're a member of multiple MLSs or an MLS and a CIE, you can select all of those. And if you don't belong to any, you can still use RPR. You just put that little check marks right there. And somebody who doesn't belong to RPR, they will still see all of the, I'm sorry, somebody who doesn't belong to a CIE or an MLS will still see all of the public records. They will see all the economic and demographic facts across the country. And they will also see any listings shared by the national partners or just local MLSs or CIEs that are sharing nationally as well. So even if you're not an MLS or CIE subscriber, you still get a lot of value out of this. There is a mobile app. There's no cost to download it. So just, go ahead and go to the App Store or Google Play. Basically, everything that we're going to go through today is going to be available on the app, minus the site selection tools and the business points of interest aren't on there, but everything else is. So it really gives you a lot of information, kind of the palm of your hand. You can even run an investment analysis, from your mobile device if you really wanted to get wild out there. So it's a really powerful platform. Residential commercial is just one app, and you use this little cog thing to tell the system what side you want to utilize for that day. Rebranding our world. This is really important in my mind, somebody who comes from the marketing side of the world. Basically, what this will allow you to do is replace our RPR logo with your own company logos. So if you, are tied to an MLS or CIE, your office is tied to an MLS or CIE, we can use that information to rebrand all of the agents in your office with those correct logos. So I'll try to show that afterwards. If anybody has any interest, just shoot me a question and I'll be more than happy to kind of show you how to do that. Tutorials and training, tons of on-demand courses, of course. If you go to our blog page, which we'll take a quick trip to here in the beginning, inline tutorials are going to be available to you. This is kind of new, so each page will have some short videos on how you might use that page. Articles about certain processes or success stories and that kind of fun stuff. Keep in mind, you always have customer support, so 24/7, 365. Give them a holler, let them know what's not working, what you wish was in there. If you just want to say hello to somebody, you're welcome to do that as well. And then everybody can jot down my email address. It's just nathang@narrpr.com. You can always shoot me a question or an idea, or if you want to schedule some office trainings, that kind of fun stuff. A lot of times I'm able to help you out with that as well. So I think there was one question that popped up. Let me, as I'm migrating over to the RPR site, let's see what that question was really quickly. I see the session is being recorded. Will we get a link to the recordings? I imagine the good folks at the Texas Association of Realtors will be providing that. But I personally don't have access to that link, but I imagine you will get an email here in a bit, or they'll probably post it to their website and you can always get it from there. Okay. So this is obviously the homepage of RPR Commercial. Hopefully it is familiar to you. Just a couple of things I always like to point out when you're on the homepage. There's three main ways to jump into the system. So we have go to search. Y'all have done a bazillion and a half searches in your day. This one's pretty much the same. There's a little bar, you plug in a geography and you hit the go button. A couple little nuances I'll point out though. Go to analysis. This is our site selection toolbox. So this is where the attribute-based site selection tool is. Both of the retail gap analysis tools are in there as well. And then this is just, a more visualized map-based search option for you. And all of our maps function the exact same way. So nowadays, I don't usually get enough time to kind of cover the maps, but we will show maps throughout the entire process. So just kind of keep that in mind. Recent properties, recent searches, recent reports. Any notes that you've added to these properties, you can jump to them really quickly and easily. As we kind of scroll on down, here's that 24/7 customer support. So if you ever want to give them a holler, just pick up the phone. There's also a live chat option, which I use quite frequently just because, sometimes I don't want to pick up the phone. Sometimes I just want to kind of type and then they can get back to me and I can kind of continue working a little bit easier that way. Down here, is the blog page. So we can click on blog, and that will actually take us to another website. And this is kind of our public facing, here's what we're working on. Here's kind of the training sets, all that kind of fun stuff. So if you go to blog.narrpr.com, that's where you will able to find all of these resources. So the first one I'll show you really quickly is just the training. So up here you go to training, online webinars, and you can see there's a pretty large category of or catalog of commercial trainings here. So all of these are on demand. So after today, if you want to dive in a little bit deeper, or over the weekend you want to watch a couple of these, there's courses on those land development, back of the envelope calculators, long-term investment analysis. This one specifically on the multifamily side. This one talks about all the ESRI data sets, RPR mobile, utilizing some trends and site selection tools. So there's a lot of different webinars on this page for you. The other thing I wanted to show you, if you go to industry segments and then click on broker owners, this is how you initiate branding. So there are other tools within the broker tool set. So if you want to kind of take a look at these, the only reason that I talk about branding is because that's really the only one that applies to the commercial brokerages. There are residential tools, so you can do things like market intelligence. And, I guess if commercial does have affiliated services, we can definitely add those as well. And then there's a residential broker AVM tool. But the key is to, in my mind, set up that branding. And you can do so by clicking on enroll in the broker tool set from this site. And then that will give you a spreadsheet. You tell us which offices you have, which MLSs and CIEs they're tied to. Send us a logo, and then we will rebrand, all the agents tied to those MLSs and CIEs for you. All right. So now that we've kind of gone through, some of the basics, let's go ahead and jump into actually using the tool here. So we'll go into this search area. And like I said, this is probably pretty familiar to all of y'all. You got your, geography that you plug in here. The only thing is, because we have public records, we have this toggle up here at the top. So if I'm just looking for things that are for sale or for lease, obviously I could just do that. But if I want to see everything in a geography, I would use this all property search. And that will help me pull up literally, all the public records, all the for sale listings, all the for lease listings, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead though. Let's do a for lease search. And I'll just kind of show you how the general search process works. So we'll go into Houston, Texas. And of course you can, filter these however you might like to. There's also this advanced filter. So if we wanted to plug in things like the building size, square footage, we could do that. Year built information, we could do that. But let's say that we're looking for some office space. So we'll just go ahead and filter that down a little bit, hit the search button. And now you have, this search results page, and you can see there's 1,033 office for lease properties inside of the system right now. And we could come over here to this bigger map if we wanted to. And you could do this more visualized. So if you have a specific geography, you can do reduce search as the map moves and kind of zoom in a little bit on a specific area. I know Houston in general is pretty big. So there might be some more locations that you prefer a little bit better. Next up, what we can do over here, we can filter this down again if we really wanted to. So if we wanted to throw something in there like square footage or something like that, we could. There's all types of different ways we can sort this. We can look at 10, 20, 50, or 100. We can sort it by days active, recently updated, most expensive, and kind of so on. And then it's just like looking for any other space y'all have probably ever done a search for. And what you'll do is, once you kind of come across a building that strikes your fancy, you can click on this address here. And then that's going to drop you into the property detail page. And it looks like we just had a question pop up. Where do the listings pull from again? How does this compare to CoStar listings? So the listings are going to be coming from, a couple of different areas. The first one would be for each of you who belong to an MLS or a CIE. Those listings, assuming that we are partners with that MLS or that CIE, those listings would come in. The other site is coming from a company like brevitas.com and then also crexy.com. So they provide us with on-market properties for the entire country. Total Commercial was another one. And then there are, local MSs and CIEs that share nationwide as well. So it comes from a lot of different sources, I guess you could say. How does it compare to CoStar? Depending on your market area, I really can't answer that. I will say that we don't do research. We're not out there flying around in helicopters and calling on business owners and agents, and we don't have a team that does that. So I would imagine that CoStar is probably going to have more listings in there. But again, we do have those public record data feeds as well. So I would suggest, if you are a CoStar subscriber, to just do your own comparison, see what's inside of RPR, see what's in CoStar, and kind of make your decisions that way. So we had a couple other questions. Can you do around, I tried searching and couldn't get much information. For specific areas, you could shoot me an email and I will be happy to kind of help you out with that. But for this webinar, we'll just kind of run through a general overview, and then we can do some Q&A afterwards that can get a little bit more specific. But for right now, we'll just kind of dive into these details as they are. Are Catalyst listings included? Most of them are. So in Texas, I believe y'all have 4 different Catalyst CIEs. The only one that I don't believe is included is the Houston CIE. So all the rest, so El Paso I know is, and then I believe there's 2 others that are as well. So 3 out of 4 are partnered up with us. The other one in Houston currently is not. It does not pull any data from LoopNet or CoStar. When searching on the phone app, can you select for sale or for lease? I believe you can. I would have to do a quick check on that, but yeah, I'm 90% sure you can determine if you want to just look at for sale or for lease. Pulls from commercialsearch.com. Commercialsearch.com, I don't believe it exists anymore, because I believe that was owned by Xceligent, which we all are probably aware what happened to Xceligent. So yeah, commercialsearch.com. If it does exist, we do not have a feed from it. But I'm pretty sure that went down as soon as, Commercial Exchange. Yeah, Commercial Exchange is owned by Catalyst. They do not currently send us a feed of their listings. Why is Catalyst in Houston not sharing their properties? Are the listings you are showing in Houston from their MLS? You would have to ask, the Houston Association why they have chosen not to share. I really can't answer that for them. It's one of those things. We're not here to, make anybody do anything. If an association or CI wants to partner with us, we are more than happy to do so. I mean, we would even partner with CoStar and LoopNet if they wanted to. We just want to try to make this system as complete for the users as possible. So, I don't know why Houston isn't currently sharing. That'd be a question for them and their leadership. The second part of that, are the listings you're showing in Houston from their MLS? So let me show you how this works. So you can see over here on the side, these are coming from Crexy. So the way it's set up, we have kind of the main building, then each of these other sub ones are the various suites that are available within that building. So this one's coming from Crexy. Some of them are probably coming from Brevitas. There's others that are going to be coming from totalcommercial.com as well. Does it have drawing tool capabilities? It does not at this point in time. But if you do have a map drawing service and you want to upload that, you can upload images to the system. Can we pull comps on sale and for lease? Yeah, I'll show you all how to do that here in just a bit. All right, so it looks like we got through that first little burst of questions. Oh, one more comment. Can you manually add a listing? No, that's one of the big things that differentiates us from your MLSs and CIEs. There's no way to add a listing directly to RPR. You have to go through one of our partners in order to do that. The other thing we don't have is a public-facing site, so there's no way for Joe Public to come in and look at the properties available on RPR. We rely on the local MLSs CIEs to build that out. We also rely on NER's new partners to help expose y'all's listings that way, being Brevitas and Crexy.
Also, just to add this is Annie from Texas Realtors. Members actually have to subscribe to a local association, CIE, that's operated by Catalyst. There's an aggregation of all Catalyst listings for the state. I believe there are 5 right now. And that is how you can get your listings available to the public.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for jumping in there. All right, so let's go ahead and walk through the property detail page here, and then we can maybe address some questions again here in just a bit. I see a couple more rolling through. But as you can see, this is how we merge public records with property details. So again, over here on the right-hand side, you'll see where these are coming from. The other thing to keep in mind, since we do have multiple partners, you might have a listing that's on your local CIE, on Brevitas, and on Crexi. So we will try to show you exactly which ones those are. And sometimes it's good to look at all 3 versions and just see if the listing agent added some other details on one that's not on the other. So it's kind of interesting that way. Up here at the top, since this is a for lease property, there are various suites available, and you can see what the size and square footage is of those suites. So if you want to jump into that specific suite details, you can just click on that and see that suite specifically. Obviously, we bring in all the photos that the listing agent has uploaded, but we do have Google Map intertwined here as well. So you can kind of see the street view is going to work for you. We also have the overhead views here as well, so you can utilize those just as you would expect and kind of work through that way. You can add notes to these properties. What's kind of cool about the mobile device, if I was doing a tour of all of these different suites up here, for instance, with my client, and they all probably look somewhat similar, after each one, I could say, I can actually pull up my app. I can actually do a recording or type notes directly onto the property detail page and say, Suite 100 had, the most amount of space, but the, corner offices weren't as nice or needed renovations or, whatever it might be. And that way, as I'm doing my tours, I have the notes right there in my hand. And those would populate up here as well. But you can also add, parking is an issue here. Hit the add button, and now that's going to be on this property detail page. And the other thing to keep in mind, anything you add to these properties, it's going to just be for you. So nobody else is going to see that little note that I added unless I print it out and hand it into to my client as a report. Let me show you one thing really quickly. So on the bigger map, we have various heat map layers. And I get this question quite a bit, so I always like to point it out. Some folks are interested in the flood zone map. So we do have FEMA's flood zones. It's underneath this residential real estate indicator. And then down here, if you come down to flood zones, you can flip that on. And now we can see whether or not, this building looks like it might, no, it looks like it might just skirt it out of that. But what we can do then is grab a quick screenshot of this. And just to kind of show you how the photo function works, we can upload any pictures here. Also, if you were actually walking through that property with your mobile device, you can actually take pictures as you're walking through the property and upload those as well. And then those will populate here. So now I can include that in my report. And then as we're kind of scrolling down here, you can see owner facts. Usually for us, Black Knight brings us the LLC level or the corporate level. So if it's owned by an individual, obviously we would have that owner name and their mailing address. But if it's held under an LLC, we don't dive into the controlling partners. However, y'all should be able to just go to your state, I believe it's the Department of Labor, to look up the corporate entities and the controlling parties there. Here's an example of all the different tenant information that we have. Public facts, listing facts, another way to add more changes. So, if we happen to know, going back to that parking issue, we can type in parking spaces and, say how many are available. Or if we, have the cap rate, we can add that as well and hit the save button. So we can add anything we want to these. And again, this is just going to be for us and our clients. Price change history, listing details, structural information, location features, building conditions, legal descriptions. If we have the plat map, you'll see a little red download link there. Tax information, and then we have deed records, and then down here, kind of some miscellaneous information. So that looks like to be an error in my mind. 34% cap rate seems a little high. They probably meant to put a decimal there. And then we also have some other details coming from Crexy.
Nathan,
Yes, ma'am.
a couple of questions. Would you like to address them now or?
Sure.
Okay, so we have one from Kathy Conway. Does the flood map following the FEMA Atlas 14 map?
I don't exactly know what the Atlas 14 is. These are FEMA's flood maps, so I would assume so, but I would have to ask our data teams. Yeah, I don't know what the Atlas 14 part of that question is, to be honest, but this is the most up-to-date FEMA flood maps that are available.
Okay, we have another question. Can we access and or download GIS data sets so we can perform our own custom analysis?
No, so within RPR, we don't really export any of this data other than in the reports that we have set up, and that's due to the terms that are negotiated through Esri.
Okay, and then the last question as of now, I'm in Houston and LoopNet and Catalyst is what I hear the most.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I am in Houston and LoopNet and Catalyst is what I hear the most.
Okay.
So Sherry, if you could maybe elaborate more on this question.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know if Sherry elaborates, and I'll kind of continue on through the example here. Okay, so I want to show you all. There was a question a while back about looking for comps and that kind of fun stuff. So really quickly, want to show you how to do that. So we're going to go back into the search function here, and this time we're going to do that all property search. And what we can do now is we'll just go back into Houston, and let's say that I'm looking for multifamily comps. I can click on this advanced tab, and when you have it set to all properties, you can then utilize this sold date or date range. So there's two things you can do with this. Obviously with the sold date range, we can say we're looking for anything that's sold within the last year. We could plug in things like number of units, et cetera, et cetera. And that'll kind of show us what comparables we might be able to identify utilizing this function. So we can see you have 219 multifamily properties in the Houston area that have sold. You can see some of these are coming from public records. So even if it didn't go through your local MLS or your local CIE, we should be able to catch some of the details based on public records. And I know, Texas, not everybody discloses all the informations of that sale, so it does get a little tricky that way. But this is a good resource for that. The other really cool thing that you can do as well, if I change this to date range, I can also use the tool for farming purposes. So let me say that, I'm looking for properties here that haven't sold since, January of 2010 through December of 2010. And we'll just keep this as multifamily and click on the apply button. So what I'm looking for are multifamily properties that might be, towards the end of their hold period. The next thing that I can do that's just kind of cool is we can go to the map again, and we can go to the show geographies, and we can flip on the opportunity zone map layer. And so now what I can do is, let me zoom in. It's like y'all have a lot of opportunities in the Houston area for this. So I'm not going to select them all. I'll just select a few of these and kind of show you how this works. So as you're selecting these, you can probably see that the geographies are going up a little bit. And what that allows me to do is I can actually go and search just in these opportunity zone areas. So if I want to kind of search around this eastern downtown Houston area, I can select those opportunity zones, search in those 19 geographies. The other cool thing I can do is I can actually save this. So next time, if I want to do, the same opportunity zone multifamily search, I will have it in the system. I can rename this, let's call it Op Zone Houston multifamily. Maybe it's the Central Business District. I don't really know, but we can name it whatever we want. And then that will stay in our saved searches so that anytime we come back, we can run that search. We can change the date range around, but now you can kind of see how this works. So you can see, this building hasn't sold since January of 2010 through December of 2010. It's also inside of an opportunity zone. Based on some of these historical pictures, you can kind of see, what the state of the building was in. So it might make for, if I'm working with an opportunity fund, it might make for a good project, one that's a little bit older, one that's been held for a while. The current owners might not, want to invest the money to renovate it. However, if you have an opportunity fund, that's exactly what you're looking to do. So it's a really great way to utilize, those opportunity zones and the public records to identify potential, listings that you might be able to get. And some of these owners probably aren't even aware of the opportunity zone. So you can reach out to DFI Realty LLC and see if they're looking to maybe move this property now that it's been 9 years since they last purchased it. All right. Let me see here. Atlas 14 refers are new and dependent on local government decisions as well. Austin just ruled to impose strict Atlas 14, which caused devaluations to occur. Okay. All right. So I was just reading the question regarding the FEMA. I'd have to ask about that. I have never heard of Atlas 14. So maybe shoot me an email with that. It's just my email address is NATHANG, so Nathan G at NARRPR.com, and I will ask our dev team more specifically, if that's applicable for us. All right. So I don't see any other questions. Let's jump into. I want to make sure to hit the site selection side of the system. So we will jump into the site selection tool here. And you can see there are kind of 3 of these. So this first one, where are the right people for a business? This is that attribute-based tool. So you can select the types of people you want to be around or the economic and demographic conditions that you want to be around and identify the areas within a broad geography that you should kind of focus in on. We also have, the retail gap analysis tools down here. So what's the best business for a location? We can just plug in Waco, Texas, run the analysis, and you can kind of see just in the city what the competition levels are. We can also obviously narrow that geography down to zip codes. And then I'll show you a way here in a bit that you can do it by, 10-minute drive time or 3-mile radius and that kind of fun stuff. And then what's the best location for a business? If you have, a grocery store that's coming into town, you can identify where in a specific geography the least amount of competition is. But for us, I always like utilizing the attribute tool because it's the most flexible. It's not just, dependent upon, a retail facility or, consumption behaviors or anything like that. You can actually use this tool to, identify where you should place a senior care facility, where you should look for multifamily opportunities, warehousing based on spending online for internet orders. There's all types of things you can do with this. So what I thought we would do is actually maybe do a little bit of research first. So I'm going to open up another tab here. And what I'm trying to do is research a WeWork facility to identify another shared office space in my home marketplace. So I did a little looking around on WeWork earlier, and there is a WeWork in the Austin area at 3300 North Interstate 35. And there it is. So we can hit that search button. So again, this is an off-market property. Well, it's actually on market. Interesting. So there is some leases available in this building at this time. So that's kind of cool. But even if it was just not, on market, you would still be able to pull up that building based on the public records. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use this map pin and the drive time tool. And so what I'm going to do is try to understand why WeWork might have selected this area versus, some of the other ones. So let's say that, I think that the, drive time of about 10 minutes is probably where most of their shared office space utilizer is going to come from. You can actually set this up, let's say that maybe 10 a.m. is kind of their busy time on a Monday. That's fine. If we want to do by walking, we could do that as well. But Google Maps will create that area for us, and then we just click on create a trade area report and click OK. And then we can actually run this report. And to save a little bit of time, I went ahead and did this yesterday. So we can actually pull this up. And so what I'm going to do is, utilizing our trade area report, try to identify attributes that I think might make sense for a shared office space, and seeing if they actually kind of jump out. So as you're scrolling through here, the trade area report's great for reverse engineering site selection, as well as once you find a space, just kind of giving that complete picture of the community. So this is Esri's tapestry segmentation. So this kind of gets beyond the economic demographic stats and facts into the actual community preferences. Esri's been doing this for 30 plus years. They've created these tapestry segments by grouping people together based on shared attributes that are also kind of differentiated from other groups. So it's kind of interesting, their process. But you can dive into things like, their neighborhood profiles, social economic traits, a brief commentary on who these people are, what they like to do, market profile, et cetera, et cetera. So, right off the bat, if I wanted to search for this specific tapestry segment, I could do that within RPR and identify any areas in my, local geography that have, metro renters as the #1 segment. So that's kind of cool. But what I usually do for this situation is kind of scroll past those tapestry segments and jump into these economic and demographic kind of figures. So again, what I'm trying to identify are things that jump out as, maybe being, things that separate this area versus other areas that I'm familiar with. So as you're kind of scrolling through here, you can see things like total population density. This is a pretty high population change since 2010 figure. So maybe that's something that I want to kind of key in on. You can see for the 5 and the 10-minute areas that it's 30 and 20%. As we're scrolling through here, daytime population density, we have female to male ratios. 20s, this kind of jumps out. So maybe, younger folks as well, that kind of makes some sense. This is a college town. So maybe they're getting done with college and have some ideas that they're working with other, colleagues on, and then kind of starting up their businesses that way and need that shared office space. Then we're going to kind of skip over the marriage information there. Household income levels, it does seem like there are some high household incomes. Not sure that that's a real disposable thing. Unemployment rates are kind of low in this area. This one's kind of interesting. I've done this a lot, and just about every one of the WeWork facilities has professional and scientific in one of these top 3 categories. So that's one that I'll probably pull out, which again kind of goes along with those startup company type of concepts. Professional services things, a lot of these careers where you can either work, in a small group, or you also kind of need some flexible space to kind of grow. Education levels are going to be important here as well. Again, another key factor seems to be they always are around highly educated folks. So we can plug that in as well. And then there's things like commute times, home valuations. And then we have here, this is the retail gap analysis for that 10-minute area. So you can look at things like, whether or not there's a lot of amenities around, or, what the key retail facilities are in the area that they worked in. So grabbing those details, now what we can do is, let's say that we're going to go into another college area. So we'll go into Lubbock County. And what we'll do now is we'll plug in some of those attributes. So facts and stats, we're going to come down here to the population change. So we're going to look at population trends, change since 2010. We can add up to 5 different categories. The other one, who they are, looking for those 20s. We could also do something like early adults, which shows people between the ages of 20 and 39. And then you can also see, if you ever hover on any of these little question marks, what the data source is, how often we get it updated, and that kind of thing. But I'll stick to what we saw, which was a really large spike in the 20s there. Then what we can do is we can add the what they do, and we can plug in the industry of employment. And so the professional, scientific, and technical space. And then the last category, going back to who they are and looking at the education range as well. And so we can look at, let's just do at least a high school, or no, let's do at least a college education. There we go. So I've selected 4 of these. You can do up to 5. This is probably good for now, but we can then run this analysis. And you can kind of see how this works. So this is the entire county. And then we have this coloration with the, no match up to a best match. There's all the different attributes that we plugged in. Right now, this is set to cities. However, we can change this to something like zip codes if we want to kind of get into a smaller kind of niche here. The other thing we can do is directly compare, or what I like to call benchmark, one geography directly to the other one. So really quickly, you can see if, the 94 or the 79409 zip code, how it stacks up to the 79410. This is great because, not only might this tool enlighten, you all to the best areas, but it's also great third-party data to show your clients that backs up probably what you're already telling them. So y'all are, very aware of your communities. You understand where these options or opportunities might best lay. And so this will kind of back up why you're trying to get them into one of these other, zip codes or one of these other geographies. So we can actually create this as a report, and we'll come back to this here at the very end. And as we're going through this, let me go back to the results now. And what we can do now is we can select the areas that we want to search. So while that report's running, we can go and look for a property. And now we're doing those 4 top zip codes. And you can see there's 112 different properties that are available. And so what we can do now is we can, filter this down. A lot of times I will keep that commercial just selected because some listing sites will send us a property and it's either like mixed use or general commercial. So it's kind of the safety net I've found. So if you're ever concerned about overlooking a property, you can either leave that checked and then kind of filter down from there, or you can run the office one and then you can kind of see whether or not you're missing out on some commercial ones. So this is a good example right here. If I hadn't have left that check, that looks like an office space to me, I would have missed out on that one. So kind of keep that in mind as you're doing these searches. But again, it's just like doing any other type of search, looking for a type of space that kind of meets your needs. We can, again, set this up, look at multiples at one time. Ooh, sorry about that. That doorbell just means that the report is ready to go. So you can kind of see how this works. Let's see, there's one that I had found. It's always tricky setting these up beforehand and then trying to find the property you originally looked at. There's one that was really cool that I was hoping to kind of show y'all, but that's all right. We can use any of these sites. Let's just say that, we'll just go into this one. Let's just say that this is the space we've identified as a good location. Just like we did before, you can run through all the property details from the listing agents. You can run through all the information that the public records has provided us. But what we can do to take this to the next step, and this is going to be on every single property. There's this little magnifying glass with a $sign in here. We can actually run an investment analysis on this building. So based on, what we're going to utilize the space for, maybe since this is a larger building, we're probably going to have some long-term tenants mixed in with maybe, we're going to have a shared couple of floors or something like that. So you can really build these out kind of however you want. So we're going to call this an office space. And then down here, there's the property name, the scenario name. You can call this a base scenario or, low renovation, high renovation, whatever you want to name, it's fine. The reason it allows you to name this scenario is because you can, run multiple versions of the same analysis. So if you wanted to look at this from a small renovation to a large renovation and see what the impacts might be on the internal rates of return, you can definitely do that. Here's the purchase price. I'm just going to make up some numbers really quickly here. So 495,000. We'll take out 100,000. Here is the annual growth rate. So this is our inflation factor pretty much. So that's going to bump up OPEX and EGR by 2% year over year. Next up, we have the holding period. So let's say we're going to plan on holding this for 7 years. Our loan to value is going to be 50%, 5% interest rate. Number of equity players, that's just the number of investor groups that are coming in on this. So we'll just leave that at 1. And then you hit the submit button. And now you can kind of see how this works. So up here at the top, you'll have an unlevered and a levered summarization for the entire hold period. So there's on an unlevered basis, 8.15, on a levered basis, 11%. What I like about this tool is that it kind of nudges you to make sure that you're not doing something weird. But you can click on see more, and you can see it's a possible error on the home screen. My sales valuation is less than my purchase price. That's what I intended. I can ignore it, or I can go and fix it. So what we can do is come down here to the bottom, and indeed, we're actually showing a 5% drop in property value growth. But what's cool about the system is, I can change this number, and that's going to affect the sales cap rate. So what caused this to happen was I'm purchasing this at a 7.98% for this price. The system automatically, we're holding on to it for 7 years. It's going to bump up the sales cap rate by 0.25% every year, just because, as your building ages, there's new ones coming online, which makes this less attractive, so on and so forth. But if I wanted to change this around, let's say I want to have it as a 5% growth, it's going to automatically bump up my sales valuation, but then it's going to drop down that sales cap rate. So what's cool about this system is everything kind of reacts almost automatically. And you can make assumptions, you can change things around. If I think that's way too low, I can drop that down to a 7 cap. And you can see the price is going to jump up from there, and that's going to then, readjust everything else that I've kind of worked on. So it's a great way to kind of fiddle with the numbers a little bit and just see if something's going to kind of make sense for you. So let's put this back at an 8. And there we go. And it looks like I have a couple of questions that have popped up. So if loop nut and callus aren't on RPR, how does that affect the Houston reports? It really doesn't affect any of the reports. The only thing that having LoopNet and Callus inside of RPR affects is the on-market listings. So you can see when I did my Houston search, there were still a decent number of properties from Crexy and Brevitas coming in there. We don't do like residential does, where there's an AVM or a CMA tool or anything like that. Obviously on the commercial side, you're kind of forming your own broker opinions and that sort of stuff. So it really doesn't affect anything per se, other than what you're able to see as a user as being on market. So things that are for sale and for lease, obviously, if it's on LoopNet and it's not on Crexy, it's not going to be an RPR. If it's on Catalyst and it's not on Brevitas or Crexy, it's not going to be an RPR. So that's all that affects. Doesn't affect any of the economics, the demographics. It doesn't affect your ability to use the investment analysis tool. You can use this tool for things that aren't showing as on market in RPR, but maybe you're in the Catalyst site and you see it's on market there. You can still run the analysis based on what's on Catalyst's website. You just got to pop open a new tab and go through it that way. So yeah, shouldn't affect any of the actual data sets. And then as we kind of go back into this, so that's kind of just, a couple of real quick things, but we can also run through the cash flow analysis tab here. So there's the EGR, there's the OPEX. Here's every month of this hold period. We can, squirrel away capital reserves. We can plug in renovation outlays, TIs, LCs. And again, that's for every month of that entire 7-year hold period. The multifamily one's going to look a little bit different than this one. It adds the unit mix and the rent roll analysis, as well as the scheduling on a monthly basis of renovations to each individual unit. But everything else will kind of look the same. Purchase and sales screen, so you can plug in things like disposition costs. We can come over here to the source of funds. So now you can look at, the loan details, the amortization periods, is it an assuming of an existing loan, loan to value test, debt service coverage ratio test. You can add multiple investors at this point in time. Within that, if you have, if I'm the sponsor of this deal and I'm able to negotiate hurdle rates, that give a bump in my return if I make this perform well, you can schedule all those out also. And once you kind of have all this set up, you can share this a couple of ways. You can share it as a link, just like that, and that'll create a complete duplicate of what you just worked on. And give your, whoever you send that to a kind of guest pass, I guess you could say. The other thing we could do is export this as a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet. So I'll export it as a PDF really quickly and kind of show you what that looks like. But due to the fact that we're about to run out of time, let me go through here and wrap things up really quickly. So we're back on that, the office space that we wanted to look at purchasing. We can create this as a report now. And I can actually manage custom pages. So I can actually add that PDF I just exported right there. And you can add as many, well, I think you can add up to 5 different PDFs at one time. You can, arrange them however you want. So I'm going to put this one at the end, hit the save button. And now if I go and look at this, there's that custom PDF. We can run this report. And just like I had done earlier, so when I was, trying to understand why WeWork placed their offices in that one building in Austin, I can run the same report here on this building as well, just to kind of give me some more insights into, what might attract this community, things like if they are environmentally conscious, how I might kind of rearrange some recycling bins and not using styrofoam and, removing straws and plastics, and maybe everybody gets to where they're going on bicycle. You can see, that kind of details and understand whether or not you need to maybe add some more bike parking or that kind of stuff, or have, in the Portland area, we have Nike provides a lot of bicycles for rental. They call it Nike Boomtown. So, all those kind of things you can work with partners and kind of facilitate the needs of your potential shared office space clientele. So, we'll go through these reports really quickly to wrap things up, just to kind of take us through that final journey. So again, we discovered the attributes that we used for our trade area analysis by doing that reverse engineering. So we have population change, 20-year-olds, professional, scientific, and technical, and at least a college education. So you can share your client exactly why you went to specific areas that you went to. At the very bottom, you can see where this data is coming from. Last time we got it updated, a lot of this stuff is obviously going to be coming from the U.S. Census Community Surveys. We can then take them to the property we found inside of one of those zip codes. So here's our nice little building. Again, if you had the broker tools set up, you would see your logo up here and not ours. Here are the public facts, the listing facts, overhead shots, all the tenants that we have identified in the building. You have the structural information, exterior details, listing facts, public facts, legal descriptions, owner names, assessed values, deed records, overhead shots for property photos. You can obviously remove this stuff. I usually have that unchecked to, don't really need school information for the most part. Here are the traffic counts that you can then show. So there's our property. There's the first count. There's the second. There's the third. So you can get an idea as to, the flows, I guess you could say. And then here's that investment analysis that we ran. So this is kind of just the overview. And then, of course, the printout is going to be kind of your annual cash flow statement for the entire hold period. So there's our unlevered internal rates of return and equity multiples, and then there is our levered internal rate of returns and equity multiples.
And then, Nathan, do you have a chance to answer Randy Bush's question?
Yeah, I saw that. It seems like Randy was just providing me some context as to what that Atlas 14 is. So again, I would just have to go back to the product team to see what, I imagine that the FEMA flood maps are the Atlas 14 versions, but I don't know for sure. So I would just, if anybody is interested in that information, again, just shoot me an email, nathang@narrpr.com, and I'll have to ask the product team.
And then another question.
Yeah.
Not sure if you can see that.
Yeah. Is there an option to see zoning maps? So we do not have zoning maps inside of RPR. And the reason for that is we just haven't found a national provider of zoning maps. So a lot of the local municipalities obviously have those, but it's difficult to get that for the entire country inside of one data set. If you know of somebody, I'd love to discover that. But yeah, it's just, in order for us to bring data into the system, it has to be available on a nationwide basis, because obviously we have realtor users from large cities down to very rural markets, and we want to make sure that we're servicing everybody the same way and providing the same data tools. Okay, so the last report that I wanted to show y'all, and we've kind of already looked at this, but here's our Lubbock area, and this is just going to help us kind of define the community, the marketplace that we're going to use that shared office space for. So again, just looking through the Esri tapestry segmentations, this is probably when I'd spend a little bit more time actually reading about who these people are, because I feel like these data sets provide you with the most insights about the community. So you can see things like they shop for groceries at discount stores such as Walmart and Kmart, tend to carry credit card balances, have student loans, and pay bills in person. Half of households abandon landlines for cell phones only. Fast food devotees enjoy outdoor activities. All types of little facts and details that can help guide your client to making business decisions that attract the communities that are going to be surrounding them. So you can then obviously kind of scroll through and if there are other data sets that you want to pull out, like we kind of did earlier, and just pointing those out to your clients, you're able to do so. If I was on the other side of this transaction and trying to market this building, there might be some of these data sets that I wanted to pull out and use in my marketing as well. So you can also use the trade area reports to research properties you're about to list and try to figure out what key factors might attract people based on what you think the highest and best uses of those buildings. So with that, I see it's just over 9 o'clock my time. So I don't want to take up too much more of your day today. If there are any other questions, though, I'd be more than happy to kind of hang around and do some Q&A with y'all. If we need to wrap things up, that's cool as well. Just feel free to shoot me an email, nathang@narrpr.com. I'll be more than happy to look into things like the FEMA flood map issue that y'all brought up, or any other questions, concerns, hopes, dreams, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, well, thank you very much, Nathan. If there, wait, we have one more question.
Awesome info. Would love a link to the training. Yeah, let me show y'all one last time. If I go down to the bottom of our page, so there's on-demand training that we have available just by going to the online webinars and then selecting commercial. So you can watch any of our training anytime, dive into the multifamily investment analysis tools using the opportunity zones, et cetera, converting trends into deals. And then y'all might be able to, I guess, provide the details. Are y'all going to be sharing this link afterwards?
Yes, it's also being recorded. So it'll be on our YouTube channel and Facebook link.
Awesome. So y'all should have many opportunities to kind of dive in a little bit deeper if you so choose to do so. With that, I don't see any other questions. Do y'all have any on your side?
No, I think we're good. Thank you so much again, Nathan. Like we said, this webinar has been recorded. It will be on our Texas Realtors website, our Facebook page, YouTube channel, etc. But again, thank you so much, Nate.
Oh yeah, no, thank you all for the opportunity, and I look forward to getting some emails from everybody and hopefully cross some paths with y'all in the real world one of these days.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.